Chapter 3. The woman who was sitting between the brothers was named Astrid. All who knew her assumed she was a witch, a very powerful witch, but a witch nonetheless. She had been assigned very long ago to watch over the four brothers and ensure no harm came to them. She had stepped in to save each of their lives at some point, so they all knew who she was. She had told them individually at the time she saved them that she would call upon them someday, and today was that day. Her job had been to ensure they would all be alive for a very special day, and that day was soon upon them. "Thank you all for coming today," she said, and before she could go on, Julius interrupted. "Why are they here?" he asked, pointing across the table with a menacing look. "Good question. We don't usually travel in the same circles," Liam said, leaning into the table towards Julius, as if he intended to challenge them. Liam was up for the answering. Astrid knew the brothers did not get along at all. Julius and Marcus had arrived in America long after Liam and Lucas. The brothers didn't like the intrusion of the others of their kind, but Julius and Marcus were centuries older and couldn't be driven out. They all had reached some informal agreement long ago and kept to different parts of the country. Julius and Marcus were content to stay in New York, while Liam and Lucas had chosen Seattle as their home base. The ability to go unnoticed in a large city had played into their decisions. Plus, they were as far apart as possible. On the rare occasion their paths crossed, someone in their party lost a life. Fortunately, they hadn't killed each other yet. Their unspoken agreement was that they wouldn't try to kill one another, but had no problem riling up others to try. They had destroyed entire towns in their younger days trying to ruin the other camp. It was childish at best, but their long lives could become tedious without a little tension from time to time. "I understand you do not like each other, but what I've brought you here for is of great importance. I wouldn't have asked you to meet together if it wasn't," Astrid said, trying to tamp down the building tension. "Please, Astrid, continue. We all owe you that much respect," Marcus said, and Julius sat back. "Oh, Marcus, thank you. Always the gentleman," she said, and gave his arm a quick squeeze before she continued. "Before I explain why you're here, I must first explain what I am," she said. "You're a witch, Astrid. We all know that," Lucas said. "No, I'm not a witch. You've always just assumed that I am, and I've never corrected you. I am Faye," she said, and waited for the reaction. "Everyone knows that Fae don't exist, only in children's stories and folklore," Julius said, amused. "I assure you all I exist, but let me explain before any of you interrupt me again," she said, and looked at each man, waiting for him to nod in agreement before she continued. They all sat back and sipped their drinks so she could tell them her tale. "Long ago, the earth itself created the very first Fae. Everything on earth is flowing with energy. It ebbs and flows from flower to bee, from river to rock, from soil to tree. The very first Fae is called Mother, and she is aptly named because her first child she had was the one to name her. She is the only Fae ever created from pure energy, and her powers are limitless. The rest of us are born from her and a human father. Our powers are limited, but we are still more powerful than anything else on earth. All Fae are born female, and no male Fae exists. We Fae have existed since the first humans walked amongst them, even as they still lived in caves. Mother had been created for them, to teach them to recognize and harness the energy that flowed. She was meant to be their teacher, but men do not like to learn from women. Mother noticed their tendencies toward violence very early on. She saw they loved violence and would wage war constantly. She realized their reasoning for violence varied, but they all embraced it and practiced it. If another man had something a man wanted, he would fight him for it. If women were scarce in one tribe, they had no problem fighting and taking them from another tribe. Men would take what they wanted without thought or shame. She watched as the strongest and smartest would soon promise protection, and soon they had tribes. The tribes would become a village, and then a village would become a city. Women and children became property instead of being valued as humans. Mother Sorrow grew so great she could finally no longer live among them. She created a new realm, and it exists right beside yours, but you cannot see it. It is a place of beauty and peace, where the power of nature is respected and not exploited for resources. Some of us still walk in the human realm from time to time, and on very rare occasions, Mother herself comes. Once they walked among the humans and lived with them. Now, though, we have become only a legend. When we do come, we're mistaken for witches, and we do not correct you. We prefer to be unknown and have no interest in this realm anymore, she said, and paused so they could absorb the information. So why tell us now? I mean, you say you don't want anyone to know you exist, but you're telling us, Liam asked, and the rest nodded in agreement. Because one of the four of you is tied to the fate of our youngest Fae, Astrid answered. In what way are we tied to your fate? Marcus asked. Many years ago, on one of the rare occasions when Mother came to this realm, she encountered one of you. You were but a small boy, but when she happened upon you, she felt your sorrow in her soul. She did what she had never done before and has never done since. She took from you half of your soul. She gave this half over to the energy in the Fey realm, and it created for you a true soul's mate, a perfect love made from your terrible sorrow. People speak of a soul's mate, but very few truly exist. This realm has become so crowded it is almost impossible to find it when it does. Your soul's mate was born almost 22 years ago. She will receive her full power on her birthday, as all Fae do when they are 22. On the full moon following her birthday, her soul will sing a song, and one of your souls will answer the call. She is the most beautiful Fae that has ever been born, and she awaits one of you. She paused again. Well, then why are we all here? Why not just the one she is supposedly meant for? Asked Julius. Only Mother knows which one of you it is, and she would only say it was one of the four. You are all important in some way that no one but Mother understands, and she will not speak of the future only she can see. Well, I can assure you it's not me, Julius said, and his tone indicated he was becoming bored. It's a fascinating story, Astrid, but wouldn't one of us remember half of our soul being taken? Marcus asked skeptically. Liam nodded his head in agreement and said I would certainly remember that, and besides, I'm already involved in a relationship. Oh, Liam, when are you not involved in a relationship? Astrid asked sarcastically. Lucas laughed at his brother being chastised and then said, I'm sorry, Astrid, but it's pretty unbelievable, and I'm going to have to pass. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mislead any of you into thinking I was giving you a choice in the matter, she said, and they stared at her in shock for a moment before she continued. I'm powerful enough to enforce my will on all of you. I prefer that you all come along willingly, but make no mistake, you will come either way, she told them bluntly. Come where? Asked Liam, still shocked by the turn of her tone. We have raised Sawyer in a home in this realm. Mother says she is meant for this realm, although I'm still unsure what that really means. You will come and live there until her birthday and her soul sing. Mother wants her to have the opportunity to get to know you all. She doesn't want her to go blindly into her soul sing. She wants each of you to know one another and form a friendship, she answered. Impossible, Julius said. I agree. I can't just drop everything to come meet some fairy soulmate. Do you know how ridiculous this all sounds? We can't be expected to stop our lives and follow you, Liam said. Liam, you've always been the most impulsive among this group, so I'm surprised to hear you protest. You have nothing that can't be dropped on a whim. You may bring your sister or your girlfriend or whoever else you want. I'm not here to hold you hostage. Your every need will be met, and you have all lived for endless centuries, so 2 months will not interrupt things so much. You have nothing to lose, and one of you has everything to gain. I will remind you all, though, that this is non-negotiable, and refusal won't be an option, she said. No one spoke as she finished. Each man contemplated his answer, although it seemed their refusal would fall on deaf ears. They continued the discussion a few more hours. Arrangements were made, and certain stipulations were agreed upon. In the end, they all agreed to come, because they understood the reality was they really had no choice in the matter. Astrid had saved their lives, so they could give her 2 months. When they left the bar, night had fallen, and they noticed that no one was in the bar any longer. The customers had left, and it seemed even the bartender had disappeared.